Space pirates? Really?
Hey everyone, and welcome to this special Ranger rant. I am Archer9234.
Blue 25 here.
Today we'll be doing a special episode on the entire Gokaiger series.
Gokaiger is actually the 35th anniversary of Super Sentai, and also one of the interesting facts about it is that what they did with the concept of Gokaiger really stood out compared to the older anniversaries of Sentai.
And the older anniversaries, basically, they were just simply the 10th anniversary, the 15th anniversary, 20th, and then there were a few specials in between, like Super Sentai World from Gokaigers and so forth. But they would only feature like only a few of the older teams at that point. In this case, Gokaiger went completely all the way and simply brought nearly everyone back, and especially the huge fight in the beginning of the show.
Also, the funny thing is that, like in Gokaiger and Gokaiger, they had Gokaiger versus Super Sentai, which brought back some of the older guests to portray the other Rangers and also use the voices of Big One and Dekaranger. Most of you guys won't maybe not realize it, but in Gokaiger there were a lot of references. Like the Cresters were actually the Dairangers, Tiger. Like in Ryuan, he was actually tribute to Daijujin because his chest was actually similar to it. And also some of the actors from the older series actually played different minor roles. In Gokaigers, they had Gal Blue play Mega Pink and Mega Yellow were also in there too. But in Gokaiger, we got 4 more guests than any other Sentai series has done. So in the beginning of Gokaiger, we see the Legend War, which is mostly much the Rangers are fighting the Zangaku Empire, and they have all the Rangers. Of course, Dekaranger is the leader of all of it, and he tells everyone to attack, and we see all the suit actors in every single 199 heroes attack the Zangaku. So really much in the Legend War, all 199 heroes from the past 34 Super Sentais were fighting the Zangaku Empire. After the long fight, they had to use all their powers up and try to destroy the Empire before they got more closer to Earth. In the end, they lost all their powers and all the keys were scattered all around the universe. This is when the Gokaigers come because they're space pirates. The second Super Sentai tribute in Gokaiger was episode 5, which is the Dekaranger tribute. Now the bad part is that this episode was aired later on one week because after episode 4 there was a big earthquake and tsunami in Japan, which you guys should remember. That's why Gokaiger got delayed by 1 week. And then the week after that, they
aired the Dekaranger
tribute. Now the Dekaranger tribute actually was really interesting because
it brought back most of the guest cast.
Majority of the guest cast actually appeared. The first scene, well, Nabi's prediction was go to the police and find something, and Marvelous is like, alright, let's go. And everyone's like, why are you going to police? We're space pirates. There's a reason why we shouldn't go to police. So in the course, it's not the Deca base of course, but they go to police station, and who to appear first is Jasmine, Deca Yellow. She tells them that, oh, you're wanted and this and that.
I was expecting them to do the joke with she's an S.p.d, the same thing with the narration they constantly did in Dekarangers.
But they didn't actually. So she started doing that, and she arrested Marvelous. But then Marvelous got away. She actually has an SP license, which was really interesting to see. And then she contacted someone, and on Marvelous's running, he went into Kruger doing the Gokai Change fight. Now we did the Dekaranger Henshin. And this time, this is actually a hybrid version of it because it included both the s.p.d, our American s.p.d, and the Dekaranger combined into one.
The reason why this happened was because at this point in time, Koichi Sakamoto moved back to Japan and resumed work as his stunt team for the Gokaiger series. Because at this point in time, Power Rangers was already canceled, so he went back there. But he personally loved to throw in a lot of PR references. So
during the Gokai Change, when Doggy Kruger is injured, he tells them that now you can use the Great Power. And when they are fighting, they actually have the fighting is kind of a reference to PR too because it's going back and forth, more like, it's not like the usual Sentai fight where it's just one stand and they just fight. It's more like a moving fight. And they actually have and use all the attacks. So during the fight, Doggy Kruger tells them, now you can use the Great Power of the Dekarangers. The keys are glowing, they insert it in, and Pat Striker is a Dekaranger tribute.
The thing that I really didn't like about the scene is because Deca Master is the one who's giving them the permission to use the Grand Power, but the Grand Power is Pat Striker. So that's Bond's vehicle, so shouldn't he be the one who's giving him the Grand Power?
Yeah, so it was kind of weird, like, it's Deca Red's vehicle, but yet Doggy Kruger is saying, now you can use the Grand Power, like. And it's actually pretty funny because the Pat Striker is actually different from the original Pat Striker in Dekaranger. Since all the Gokaigers all the new mechas are all changed. They're not similar to the original Sentai counterpart. So it was actually pretty good. It's all guns because Dekaranger is mostly a police gun fight. When they were coming out, finally the s.p.d. crew's there, and finally we see the final Dekaranger, Ban, Dekared.
At first, when they aired the episode, I thought, oh, Ban's not going to come back, so it's going to be a Deca Master episode.
I originally thought it was
But luckily enough, he came back at the last minute.
I originally thought it was just going to be Deca Yellow and Deca Master because I was like, we might get more people. Also, another thing during the fact is that when the Dekaranger episode aired in Japan, the actor of Sen-chan, he was actually watching the stream live. So he was actually on Ustream talking about it, about how it was forward to Dekaranger.
Yeah, he said he wanted to be in it, but then he just didn't have time or something.
Yeah, it was a lot of Dekaranger casts were in Gokaiger compared to any other of the other cast members in Sentai. Dekaranger had the most. So it was actually pretty cool that we see Ban, and then Ban tells them now they have the great power, they'll use it wisely. Also, another fact is that every time a guest comes, they always have the kind of change face of what they are.
And they're silhouette, because again, it's supposed to, for younger fans, they won't know who they are, so they have to show you who they are.
But the only thing is that Deca Yellow didn't get one, which is kind of
that broke the tradition of that for some reason.
And then Deca Red comes in, they do the Deca Red tradition. Overall, that was a pretty interesting episode. Alright, so the next tribute was episode 11 and 12, a two-parter. Now in this episode, we see Shinkengers. And who other to appear than Kaoru Shiba? Instead of Takeru Shiba, it's Kaoru Shiba. Now, to me, that was a big wow.
Because normally you would expect, someone from the main primary team to show up. But
and
in this case, they could have gotten the other ones, but in this case, it would have worked.
It was actually pretty good that they introduced her. So the funny thing about the Shinkenger is that when this part actually focused on how Marvelous and Joe actually became, how Marvelous got Joe to become a Gokaiger. Because in the beginning, Joe was working with the Zangief Empire, and his partner Sid Senpai was also one of them too. In the episode 11 first, we just see Kaoru says, "Give me back the Ranger Kids to the Shinkengers," and they're like, "Why?" And then she said, "We'll have a duel." And then Joe steps up and says, "Okay, I'll duel you," and they have a sword fight. And then from then on, we see more Gokai changes from previous series, and then that's when in the end we see Barizogi. He did one of the attacks where he spins his sword and he fires. Joe realizes that, wait, that's my mentor's attack. And he tries to find out if it's really him. And of course, they get beaten, but then Joe goes on a journey, thinking, what the hell just happened? Overall, the two-parter was actually pretty interesting.
It did bring back also Kaoru's G as well.
Yes, it did. And of course, his stupidity in which he likes to smack.
Yeah, because he still hasn't learned that he shouldn't be speaking like this and insulting people.
Now, the funny thing is that when the other four are fighting the Zangief, they're like, Joe will come back and they know him. And then you see Joe just dreaming, what can I do? When he's running past them, Kaoru Shiba comes and tells him that, we see that you're fighting for friendship and all that. So in the end, Kaoru gives them a hidden disc, and it's like the one that Taku gave Ryunosuke in the end of Shinkenger to do the double attack. So then at the end, we just see them that they fight, and then the Shinkenger's power light up, and boom, they get the new Grand Power, and it's also in Gao Lion.
Which I personally didn't like. I was like, how do Grand Powers come within each other?
That was
really
weird.
was
that
not.
Was just weird.
So
sense. The Grand Power is Gao Lion transformed into Shinken Gokaio. And to me, this one is one of the most weirdest ones because Gao Lion just breaks apart and he becomes pieces with the Shinkenger symbols on him.
They do reference the helmet putting on.
The reference helmet putting on is because.
And then they also stand on the cliffside.
And then they also call the Providence on the back too.
Yeah.
So that was actually pretty nod to Shinkenger too. But the thing I didn't like about it is because they used the sword, the swords were just.
The sword was the digital Reika de Santo, which I didn't like.
Weird. And the fact that the two swords from Gokai actually became the sword and the staff, it was weird, but it had a little backstory to the fact that it talked about how Marvelous met Joe and what Joe is going to do in the future of the Sentai series. So the next tribute, of course, is the introduction of
the Fallen Heroes.
The Fallen Heroes. Now, previous episode 17, we actually found the Sixth Ranger Inari Guy, which is a Super Sentai fanboy compared to other people. And
he's also the only Earthling, because the other ones are space pirates, and he's the only one who actually knows what to do.
So Guy, of course, is a Super Sentai fanboy, and he goes nuts over everything. So
In the beginning, everyone didn't like him because he would go crazy. So everyone was like, "Oh, this guy's going to be annoying." But as across the series, he became
more and more involved, and he actually became a space pirate, which Marvelous said in the end of the series. But other than that, he becomes a Gokai change, and everyone's asking, "How'd you get the key from?" This is when episode 18 comes in. He tells them that he has three grand powers, and he tells them how he got them. Apparently, Guy saved a little girl from being run over by a truck.
And he got himself killed.
And then he's in a coma. And then you see someone's voice says, "Inari Guy." His spirit comes up. One at a time, he sees all three of the dead Super Sentai heroes from all the series. First one is Dragon Ranger. Second one is Time Fire. And finally, Abba Killer.
Everyone hated this scene because, again, it felt like a cop-out. Because normally we're supposed to see all the characters in their past selves, even they're dead or not. But all we saw was Abba Killer. Dragon Ranger and Time Fire never spoke or showed up.
All you see is Dragon Ranger holding and Time Fire just doing this, doing this, and they're like, "Oh, they're gonna do
we're not gonna get them."
And then so the guest for this episode was Nagatai Mikoto from Abare Rangers. He tells them that you are such a weird person. You're going on a rampage for the weird reasons, but yet you're doing it because you protect people. Take the Gokai Silver and the Gokai Silver key and become a ranger.
Now, this episode caused a lot of confusion with fans because now, right at this moment, this show confirmed that Abba Killer was considered the 6th Ranger for the team, even though he's position 5.
In Abba Ranger, there were only 5 Rangers. Tyranno, Tercera, Terra, Brachio, and of course Killer. So, in a way, it kind of referenced that means Abba Max would count as a 5th one, and then Abba Killer would count as a 6th one. That's how.
But officially, Abba Max is just a simple power up.
It's a power up, but yeah, I guess they can. But in a way, if Abba Killer is a 6th Ranger, then Abba Max must be the 5th one. So he tells them that the grand power will be shown to you more later on. And of course, Guy's like, "What's going on?" And he wakes up, and he's like, everyone's like looking like. So he's technically a dead guy just came back alive. So he tells them about the grand power, which is he needs the Time Fire key, the Dragon Ranger key, and the Abba Killer key. Of course, Marvelous is like, "You can't be a hero. You don't even have the guts to become a pirate." So Guy, of course, in his depressed mode, but in the end, they actually tell him that you actually are showing to become a pirate, and he helps them out. So in the fight with the monster, they do the first Gokai chain, which is all Silver Rangers, from Gao Silver, Gohan Silver, all those, and Mega Silver. And then when the fight, he says, "Okay, now I can use the grand power." He puts the Time Fire key in his Gokai Silver and calls out Goju Drill.
Now, Goju Jin is a combination of 3 grand powers.
It's Goju Rex, Goju Drill, and Goju Jin. Now, the funny thing is that Guy first did the Goju Drill, and there's actually a funny nod because
it's coming from the Time Rangers year, basically year 3000. The drill kind of references the Raimei inside Time Ranger, but it doesn't actually reference any other mode in Time Ranger at all.
So when he inserts the grand power of Zoo Ranger, it's Goju Rex. Now, Goju Rex is actually a reference of
Tyranno Ranger.
Yeah.
It's not really Dragon Rangers.
Because
really
the only thing that Dragon Ranger, I would say, is a reference to is a spinning tail, because Dragon Caesar had a spinning tail. But if you look at the Rex formation, it actually looks like the Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah, so I was kind of confused, like, which one are you attributing? 1 or 6?
Yeah, so he did that one. So then after the grand power, he says now he uses the Abba Ranger grand power, which is Gojujin. Now this is actually a nod to Abba Ranger because
it kind of looks like Abba Killers.
Abba Killers, but also it actually references to the to Abarema because the drill is actually on one of the sides. So that's also another nice reference.
And it does kind of look like Daijujin's head.
Because it has horns like the Daijujin's head, so yeah, sweet. So the next episode of Sentai Tributes was episode 25 and 26, the Nippon Sentai Hurricaneger Tribute.
Now this tribute was one of the best ones they've done because originally when everyone's thought about, the 35th anniversary, they were doing all these guest appearances. This is what the format we thought was going to happen, basically having the guest cast come back and actually be a part of the team for a few episodes. But unfortunately, this was the only time the original guest cast were able to actually use their powers in the episode.
Now, the funny thing about the episode was that we see them still in their outfits. We see them still in their Hurricaneger outfits.
Although Hurricane Blue had different outfits. She got pants.
Yeah, she had pants because in the original one she had a skirt. Now the funny thing is that Hurricane Blue, it was actually not surprised to see her come back because
she's done many other Super Sentai shows.
After Hurricaneger, she came back in the Gokaiger versus Super Sentai. Then in Kamen Rider Double, she actually became. She also was.
She was the magician woman.
She was the magician woman, and she stayed there for a while. So she actually had a recurring role in Kamen Rider. And so seeing her in the Sentai was not really surprised because she's quit modeling, but she's done more acting now. So now the only thing that I find funny is that we actually see two of the other villains from Super Sentai as well.
Santa Kurata
Junior. Well, actually,
Santa Kurata was a junior, even though it's still voiced by the original actor.
Yes, because even though in the series he technically died in Hurricaneger.
So they had to kind of rewrite them, and they also brought in Sandaru.
Sandaru, yeah, he came back. So, and the funny thing is that this has a really nice nod to the fact because Sakata Jr. is actually a funny, stupid kind of villain.
Some people personally didn't like this episode because he was really annoying. Because basically, if you haven't watched Hurricaneger and you're introduced to the character, you're like, who the hell is this guy? He's crazy, saying all these puns and jokes.
If you watch Hurricaneger, you understand he's just a joker. He wasn't really a serious villain, but he was kicking ass in Hurricaneger.
Now, the cool thing, though, is that this show was filled with a lot of references. If you watch the Hurricaneger episode that introduced this character, they redid all the pun jokes when the Hurricanegers were trapped inside a box while they were doing this little mini game and stuff.
So it was actually a pretty funny thing, but we see Marvelous, Luca, and Joe being captured, and then Doc, I'm, and Guy are trying to find out how to get back to them. So when they're running past, you see all three of the Hurricanegers like, we want the grand powers back. We'll rescue your friends, but we just want our keys back. So Sosuke is like so straightforward, like, I want my key back. And then everyone's like, well, why? So in the second part, we actually see them that when the keys are back, they actually can transform back into the Hurricanegers.
So we actually finally confirmed that the Rangers can get their powers back.
And even though that you don't see it, they were wearing the Hurricane Gyro changers. You just couldn't see it because they were so far away. But when they did it, they actually did the Hurricaneger stuff too. They actually had a lot of puns to it too, because in Hurricaneger, when they were always fighting him, it was also funny.
Lots of jokes with such
so it was a joke when they did the riddles, because all the people were turned into nuts, which is really odd, but it was also a parody because
Satoru did transform several people into weird objects like question marks. They were turned into
cookies, dolls, all those kind of random things. Overall, it was a decent episode. Now, the funny thing is that we actually see the Hurricaneers fight with the Gokaigers, which is really nice because when you hear the Hurricaneger theme, you're like, this is going to be awesome.
And they pretty much did exactly what they've done in Hurricanegers, the same shadow fights, the same change effect. They did the exact
thing. The funny thing is that I actually liked when Kota actually said, when Doc said change weapons, they threw it up in the air, but Doc got the same ones, and then Joe got the sword, he's like, I'm using a sword. And then Kota was like, hey, I'm a pirate, so we'll use it. And then it was actually a pretty interesting thing. They actually did, and the funny thing is that the final attack was when they had all three blasts, and the swords actually kind of made a shuriken symbol, just shoot straight out. Now the grand power was Furumaru, one of the interesting ones.
Now technically Furumaru was actually destroyed in Hurricaneger, so they kind of don't explain how he's really alive still, and especially they don't explain how he transformed into this different form.
But when they use the grand power, he actually says, Hurricane Gokaiger, Sui-san. That's actually a reference because every time in Hurricaneger when they did like a...
Whenever they did Gorai Senpujin, he would always order them to do the specific transformation.
Or also when they did a mecha combination of Tenmai Senpujin, Sui-san, it actually says it's calling. So the really good thing is that all three of the Hurricaneers came back, and at the end they actually took a picture with them. So which is really cool. And of course, Guy is always freaking out when he sees guest stars. So it's actually a really good episode, and Hurricaneger was actually a really good series to watch. Alright, so now in the final episode of Gokaiger, we actually see that now the Gokaigers are using the senses. Instead of just being in the beginning where it's like, oh, we don't want treasure, now they actually realize that the greatest treasure was the earth and the people that they had to protect, because all the past Super Sentai teams have done it. So in this episode, we finally, they actually did so many Gokai changes, it was unbelievable.
Well, you kind of expect, it was the last episode.
So and also the funny thing is that this is the first time in about 5 or more years that we've actually seen a series go over 50 episodes. Because after Bokenger ended at 49, and then from then on, most of the series ended only at 49 and 50. We never passed the 50 mark. The last one that we did was the Dekaranger episodes. That was up to 51 too.
Time Ranger had passed it, and very few other ones.
And very little other ones. So seeing that Gokaiger passed the 50 mark and went to 51 is actually something really good. But I believe that if the earthquake didn't really happen, we could have gotten 52 maybe.
Or a little more.
A little more, but 51 is still a good thing to do. So in this episode now, the Gokaigers are now fighting the Zangek Empire, and now instead of going with how Joe and Marvelous fight the Emperor, this time he actually let Guy do it because originally Guy's dream was to defeat the Empire, and Joe just told Guy, go with Marvelous, don't worry about it, we'll handle anything from here. So with that happening, we actually saw that Navi found the Joker, Bosco's ship, which is really funny because it was hilarious seeing Navi saying, let's make it showy, and just start rampaging, and that was funny to see. So when they found out that the Free Joker crashed into the gigantic horse, and funny thing is that I was expecting them to, you know, like just move the ship to just kill everyone, but instead
they didn't.
Guy transformed to gold mode, was fighting Emperor, and Marvelous just took the controls and started shooting randomly of everything. Really, Marvelous, you just took all the guns and started shooting everyone.
I know, it's like he didn't really care that.
It's like, just I'll kill everything right in front of me.
I know, but I'm like, it was kind of a bad idea because he could, like, you know, end up getting the ship crashed on the buildings and killing people.
But
it was kind of stupid.
I was like, okay, he just did it. And then when they found out Joe, the funny thing is, there's another reference to the Dekaranger. When Joe transformed into Deca Master, he used the gun mode. The gun mode for the D-Sword Vega was only used in the Dekaranger movie. So after that, everyone Gokai changes. Luca becomes Shinken Red, and Aim becomes Maji Mother, and then Hakase becomes Zuban out of nowhere.
The thing I kind of missed though is that what they should have done was they should have made like a female-only suit, a male version of it, because it would have been interesting to see like Maji Mother as a male version of that suit.
Also, seeing Deca Bright as a male would be
like the female exclusives, they should have did it the other way.
Funny thing I liked is that they actually incorporated all the manga and extra heroes, with Maji Mother using the spell, Shinkenger using the Rekitai Santo, and then in gun mode, and then of course Hakase, the one
goes into
Zuban's sword.
Mode.
I was like, yes, we have a reference to that. That actually says that even with the key, you can still transform the sword. So seeing Joe actually use his ability, which he does the circle and does the slash, that was actually a nice little detail. And the fact that when Hakase came back, he actually flexed his wrist like, okay, you're hurt, that's good. That actually makes sense. We think the Emperor died, but he didn't really die. So when, of course, the final showdown, all Gokai changes were almost perfectly. And the funny thing is that if you guys notice, they have actually done like segments to each one. In the beginning, we have Gokaiger and Jaka, then we have Bokanger, then Dairanger, and all that. Then we also have the Zoo Ranger one, where it was Terror Ranger and Abba Yellow. Then the
specific themes staff weapons, guns,
the battle visor, and the
V-mode brace.
The V-mode brace with Mega Ranger and Gogo 5, and then of course Hurricaneger. You can't.
They almost. The only thing that they kind of skipped out was Abare's power-up mode. It was like the only power-up mode they skipped.
But we did use all the others. We did use Shinken Gold a lot. We did Deca Break a lot. Hurricaneger, what I really liked about the Hurricaneger one is that they actually used his homing bat attack, which is really, really something I wanted to see because Hurricaneger was always a baseball player, and
they didn't really focus on that as much.
They focused on that, and of course Magi Shine with his Magi Bluster, which was really nice to see. And also the fact that a lot of even the final waves that they did. What's funny is that we only had one person that didn't have the final wave, and that was Luca, because we had Joe do it in this episode. We had I'm doing her focus episode. Doc did it in his focus episode, and we used Marvelous's too.
And Silver had a special one. It wasn't. We were expecting silver charge, but it says special charge.
Yeah, special Showy charge, which is actually interesting. But the funny thing I liked was the super modes that they did. When at the end they just said Gokai change and it said super change. It's like,
which I didn't kind of get that because not all of them are counted as super modes. Or just super
I really didn't understand why they didn't do it with the when they had the cheapest episode, like with Dekaranger, they could have done SWAT mode too. Maji Ranger, the legend mode, and
all those special power-ups could have been used in the episodes in the past, but they seemed to ignored it until now. It
was weird, and we
at least it confirms it.
It confirms it, but the fact is that it was kind of strange to see that we didn't see them do SWAT until now. SWAT Deca Green SWAT mode, Maji Pink legend mode. Super Gosei Blue, and then of course funny is we did Hyper Shinken Red.
The one thing I particularly liked about this episode, they didn't do the forced Zord fight. Because normally at the end of each series, they would always have this obligatory, we gotta go inside the Zords and fight them big, and it would just get knocked out and blow up the Zords. In this case, they actually didn't bother, it actually stuck to the foot fight.
So in the end, they finally got to do one thing. They finally ate curry.
That was a throwback from the first episode.
From the first episode. And, everyone's happy. And Guy saying goodbye to his friends because he's now going to be a space pirate with everyone else.
Yeah, because he's finally now accepted as part of the Gokaiger instead of being the Earthling.
Yeah. So now we see that now Marvelous is gonna give back all the Ranger keys to everyone. So everyone's like, Navi's like, are you sure you want to do it? He's like, yeah, we have no use for them, so whatever. And he says goodbye to them. So you see, only Joe and Luca are like the only ones like, okay, whatever. And the other three are like, yeah, goodbye, sayonara, and all that. You see all the Ranger keys just fly out of the treasure chest and just randomly into everywhere. So we also see another reference that when Marvelous turns around, we see Abare on the top of the Gokai Galley. He just turns around, looks at him, and disappears. So technically, we see this as a reference as
is he dead? Is he not dead?
In a way, most people say he's a spirit of all the Red Rangers, so it's somewhat that. But then
I still think he's dead.
In a way, you kind of think he may be dead, maybe not. The funny thing I didn't like is that the ending didn't really have the song. I was hoping that the ending would use the ending theme of Gokaiger with the Super Sentai Hero Getter, because they announced that there was a Super Sentai Hero Getter final and forever version, which I was hoping to see, but they
didn't use it.
They used the opening of Gokaiger, but in the end, we did see some good stuff. We saw Volt Ego take back his Ranger Key. We saw Tenma and Kirin Ranger take back the Ranger Key. Then we had Magic Pink.
Which came out of nowhere.
I was
like, why did Magic Pink come back?
And then we had Miyu come back, and of course...
Miyu kind of makes sense.
Well, I really was shocked that we got Goshu in the same scene. That was really good.
I was hoping...
since he was already in the earlier episode, maybe they should just put a focus on him. He actually got the Ranger Key, which I really, really like to see. That was a really good thing to do. And of course, Anada was also Kruger and Signal Man being on Earth too. So
now there's a double nod to that scene. Now, if you know that Kruger's voiced by Kamen Rider 1 and Signal Man is voiced by Deneb, so obviously it's a Kamen Rider reference.
Also, a nod is that the final Ranger to Sentai Ranger to be given by his key is of course none other than Akaranger, the first one. What I really like is that instead of him being a face in the movie,
he's actually there.
He's actually there, and he actually talks, which was really, to me, it was a really, really good thing to say. And you see him transform back into Akaranger.
I also like to point out that his clothing that he was wearing is a reference to what he wore in Go Rangers. He wore the leather jacket and the same similar pants.
And at the end, when they're in the space, they're like, let's go for the next great treasure, which is in the homeland of Zangaka Empire.
I assume basically whenever they do the team up episode, they'll continue from this point similar to how Gokaiger continued, where the Geki Rangers had resumed with their team up.
Okay, so now we're talking about the Gokaiger Goseiger 199 Super Sentai Hero Great Battle movie.
I particularly never liked this movie, mainly because it just felt like a Gokaiger versus Goseiger movie. It didn't really feel like a tribute to all of them.
What I didn't like was that the fact that a lot of the Sentai actors really didn't do much. The thing is that we got
a lot of guests.
We got Akaranger, Big One, Dyna Pink, Gogo Black, Turbo Red,
Deca Pink,
Denji Blue,
Ryu Ranger.
Denji Blue, Mr. Obakenji, has been in the most Sentai for Gokaiger. He's Battle Kenya, he's Denji Blue, he's Space Sheriff Gavin, so he's been in
a lot of shows.
And they use like the recent ones too, but what I didn't like is that none of them had a good appearance. Like
they didn't interact with the Gokaigers. Basically,
it's like after the story starts with the Legend War, but then it's like
that's it.
After that, we only see them talking like that's it. Our powers are gone. Blah blah blah. Bye bye. We're done.
The thing that I thought was weird about the movie is that all the Rangers knew each other.
That was really odd.
I'm like Denji Blue is like 20 plus years older than pretty much everyone else.
I didn't like how does Ryu Ranger know Deca Pink, and how does Deca Pink know Ryu Ranger? Okay, the Deca Pink knowing Ryu Ranger...
That was kind of weird, too.
That was kind of weird, but in a way you can portray it because...
It kind of works because they're like recent.
They have the base, they can always look through info, but...
But Denji Blue is like...
Denji Blue's like, you and you? How the hell you get here? I was like, weird. And what I didn't like was that the face talking in the episode, near the ending, is like, huh?
Yeah, I never liked it. It always felt like a cop-out. It's like, oh, the actors only wanted to be in the movie or show for a few minutes, but you just had to do the ghost stuff.
I was like hoping that we see actors, but in the Tokyo Dome show, Akaranger did appear in talking, but in the movie he didn't really. He just talked about what it is, and it was like
just a few minutes. It really felt like
what I didn't also like was that during they made a canon. They made it like in every movie. They made a cameo of a specific thing. This time we did a Super Sentai canon, which shot out all the symbols, all 35 Super Sentais, which is pretty odd. And the fact that the Mecha Fight, we actually had the toy, the little kid had a toy, and the guy had the ship from Gokai. It was kind of an interesting nod, but it was too much CGI. It didn't feel like It was really
Speaking
good.
of the mecha fight, it was nice that we saw all make the primary 35 mechas from Very Bloom to current. But the thing that sucked about it was that they reused the stock footage from the episodes. It always looked like crap.
Like only the newer ones were recent, like from
Victory Robo, Geki Toja,
Dekaranger Robo, Daiboken. It was like
only very few of them were actually reused of the suits. I assume because either the suits were just too old or they didn't have enough time to.
And the fact that
use
also,
them.
if you looked at the CGI when they were displaying it, you can see the Muteki Shogun was skinny. Like
Yeah, most of them were CGI. They were not actually photographs.
They were like skinny like heck, and they looked really weird.
Daijujin looked like it was using the MMPR
Yeah.
Megazord, but we got recently.
The villain that they made from
I felt like there was a cop out.
I just felt like they were reusing suits because we saw all of Goseiger suits. We saw some of the magic, the magic guys.
Bretteron was half the team.
Yeah.
I was like, why is he multiply there? It should have been other people.
It was like a multiple attack, slash, next slash, next slash. It was just slashing. It was like, it wasn't really a fight. You only had like a few of them do fights, and then everything else was all CGI. Like, well, I guess the budget was, but at the
well, yeah, I mean, you had 200 plus people in the thing, and they couldn't really
weird,
do
but
much.
the CGI was okay. But I just didn't like the fact that the villains didn't attack. It's like they just got slashed, shot, hit, and that was it. The final thing I liked was that we actually used the Gokaiger keys to finally do the Goren Gokaiger, which we saw in the final episode 2.
The thing that I hate is that the Goren Gokaiger was only exclusive to the show. There's actually no toy version.
They could have made a toy version because of it, but I guess
I thought they were.
the mostly actors we saw were the Goseigers. We didn't see like
Yeah, it felt like a standard Goseiger versus Gokaiger.
we didn't see any of the. We only saw the old actors for like a brief moment, and then we saw them when the Black Cross guy was talking to the Earth, and it's like that's it. Like the only camera that I would say had the most effect was Denji Blue, Deca Pink, and Ryuinger because they were talking most of the time. In the beginning, we only saw the whole cast of Goseiger, Saki from Dekaranger, Akashi, and Genta and Shiaki, and they didn't really do much of that. It was just weird.
The best moment I think about in the movie was the actual Ranger versus Ranger fight. It was just like, really quick. It was like, yeah, you have to deal with 200 people, but it was like bing, bang, boom, they got through it.
It was like, /1, you're dead, and I'm like, huh? That's it? You can't, like, have a really epic fight where they're actually getting hit or anything?
I was expecting them to actually fight in like a huge chunk.
I was expecting them to be like in one group or team and just start kicking their butts, and then like later on they turn super mode or something, and it's like...
Yeah, it was really quick.
So what I liked about Gokaiger was that Toei went out all the way this time for this anniversary with 109 heroes, and the fact that we got a guest from each and every Sentai series, especially the older Sentais, which was really, really surprising. That was really good about it.
Yeah, they didn't disappoint in that area.
That was important because most of the time with Gokaiger and Gokaiger, we had like stock footage, and we just had like
recent guests.
In this one, we had Dekaranger, we had like so many guests. Doggy Kruger appeared. All the older guests from the pre-Zoo era actually appeared, and the fact that they actually taught the Gokaigers like what the main power is and what they're supposed to do as a Sentai team.
Plus, they also wrapped up story points that were like left open from 20 years ago, or continued story points.
Like in Magi Ranger, Magi Red is still continuing the Infertia and Magitopia area. Guy from Jetman, he's finally known that to be dead instead of alive. Dekarangers are still being Dekarangers. Ryu is just still trying to perfect his food.
We also know that the Zyurangers are not dead. Some people assume they were dead and they went to heaven or something.
No, if
Goshi came back,
so it tells that he's alive. They're alive.
I also like that the Gokaiger didn't get buried into like the mess of the other cast members, because the show could have simply went downhill because the Gokaigers could have been ignored and they just focused on the old suits.
But they
didn't.
Or they actually like focused on every aspect of a specific team. Like in Gokanger, they talked about the engine world. They actually referenced like what engine soul is and all that. So it's actually nice that every nod in the past series gets predicted and taken into account for. The things I didn't like was that some of the tributes made no sense.
Like the Car Ranger one.
Even though Car Ranger was a parody, like
Yeah, we had the jokes all over the
There
place.
were too many jokes. It was like
But it wasn't really like the traditional tribute episode because, like, again, it was just focusing on the
and
jokes.
there was no grand power.
Yeah, the grand power didn't do anything, so it was like a waste.
And another thing I didn't like was that we didn't see the Mega Ranger grand power until near the end of the episode. They got the Mega Ranger grand power key, but I'm like, where's your grand power? Like, some of them didn't really show the grand power. Dynaman, Jetman were shown in the final episodes, but it's like, I can understand that because that tribute episode actually had something to do with it, but Dynaman didn't because it really didn't focus that much on Dynaman. A lot of Gokai changes, they weren't used a lot. Like Goggle 5 didn't have so many Gokai changes. We only saw the team like once or twice.
Yeah.
And the most changes that, from what someone said on Ranger Board, the most changes that was used was Dekaranger. And I kind of think that it was more of Dekaranger 2 because Dekaranger was in at least maybe every 3 to 4 episodes or more because at least one Gokai change was a Dekaranger, at least. So that was used a lot, and of course, at least we saw the Go Rangers. Even though we didn't get a whole Go Ranger tribute in the show, in the first episode, we already saw the Go Rangers, which is really something good. And we did the Super Sentai Ball, which is actually the signature move for Go Ranger.
The other bad things I don't like about it is the lack of tributes. Some of them are just too short. The worst one, I think, was, Tsuruhime from Gokaiger. She just appeared for like 15 seconds.
I didn't like the fact, that really kind of made it stupid.
I'm like, what's the point of the tribute if the person's just not going to be there?
Like, Tsuruhime, she just said, okay, Gokaiger found Ninja Man. That's it. She appeared at the end for like 15 seconds, and it was like...
It was a waste.
And same thing with, what's his name?
Domo.
He appeared in the beginning as a hologram, then he appears in the end in Gojujin, like...
You're really not in the episode.
What kind of focus is this? And the fact that also Alba Killer focus wasn't really good. It was like...
Yeah, he was only in the death
He was
part.
like talking about death, and he's like, here's a cellular and here's the thing. He didn't really explain how he actually got the Gokaiger keys at all.
Yeah, no, we have no explanation.
There were a few explanations that never made sense. Like, why did the Mega Ranger key didn't get used until the ending? Why didn't Dynaman and Jetman do a mecha fight? Why didn't, the Go Rangers do like something interesting? Even though this is Go and Gokai in the ending, it didn't feel like it was used to its potential because Go Ranger, even though it was a first Sentai, you would think, hey, let's
use it more.
Let's spam Go Ranger more. But
especially it flies. Why would you not fly?
So it's like weird. And the fact that the Mega Ranger great power was the Mega Wing's wing to attach to Gojujin was really stupid. A lot of the cast members didn't feel like they wanted to be there because we didn't get a Zoo Ranger cast member
until 50.
It was like...
It's like you took this entire show to get one person.
And it was Goshu. It wasn't Geki. It wasn't Burai. It wasn't like... And the fact that a lot of tributes were repeated. Abare Ranger and Time Ranger were repeated twice.
Yeah, you really didn't need to. Especially when their power-ups didn't do... One was a useless power-up for arm swapping, then another one was just nothing.
It was just a sword. It was like, really? Can you really focus something on this?
And the Ninja Man one was like a wasted too because it took so long for them to get to Ninja Man because we thought he was going to be skipped and ignored like a few other Rangers.
And the fact that Ninja Man doesn't even count as a Banga hero because in Gokaiger, Toy said that he's a Banga hero with Zuban. Yeah. But yet in this
he's
one,
not.
He's just...
he doesn't even get a key.
He doesn't even get a key. But the thing is that, from what they explained is that during the Legend War, he was sealed away. But then I'm like, so when Gokaiger was there, wasn't he around then?
Yeah, he could have been. He should have been a Precious. It was
He should have been because and if you remember, Smokey, when Smokey was talking,
he was a Precious.
He was a Precious, and they're like, let's capture him. And he's like, no, you can't capture him. He's my pet. It's like there were so many things.
There's kind of things that they messed up. I think the worst thing about Gokaiger is the villains.
The villains had no details whatsoever.
There was no backstory to them. Isan became totally useless after like episode 14.
And
they all got killed relatively easy.
The Emperor's son was such a spoiled ass brat.
And then of course the Emperor himself, not used.
He was like, I'm sitting on my throne, I can kick your ass anytime I want. It's like you didn't really do much.
The villains were the worst part of the show.
The only villain that I'd say was the only good one was
Balzorg
and the other
Domaru.
Those were like the only two that were used. Like
everyone else was like ignored, no development, just monster of the week.
And the monsters that were the Gokaigers were fighting, some of them were pretty stupid.
For example, the greatest warrior in the universe.
Yeah.
And they killed him in the same episode.
In the first episode, the
curry shop.
The curry shop. They wanted to eat curry. It was the new safari curry. That is actually for reference to the Sun Vulcan team because
they loved curry. They went in that shop,
and of course it was destroyed. Now, when they were searching for the Imaji, the guy in the black robe in the Imaji Rangers, when the nuns are walking, if you pause it quickly, you see a Kyoko right there standing, cleaning up.
Kyoko's from the Shinkenger series.
Yeah, so that's a little nod to the Shinkengers.
Now another nod, it was the various opening titles. If you ever paid attention to all the people who voiced the opening titles, they were actually past characters. For example, one was Shinkenger, who voiced Shinkenger in Hurricanegers, and another one was Dekaranger from Gokaigers.
Also in episode 4, we saw the show logos of Sentai series.
You would see Tomorrow's Research, Scratch,
the Abare Ranger Curry Shop,
yeah.
the Maji Maji, in Japanese.
It was very
interesting nods. So now another nod is that in the Car Ranger tribute, when in the O Ranger versus Car Ranger episode, the O Rangers are stepping on Kyosuke in the movie. So vice versa this time,
Kyosuke stepping on a villain.
Yeah, so that was a pretty funny nod. It's like he
got his revenge.
He got his revenge being stepped on. Now he gets to step on someone else. So when Guy came in and he introduced himself, he did the red, the blue, the yellow, the pink, and the green. That's actually a reference to the Go Rangers because Go Rangers.
They went in the order.
Red was 1, blue was 2, yellow was 3 was yellow, 4 was pink, 5 was Mido Ranger, which is green, and that should say on the top of the helmet. So that was actually a pretty funny reference. Now in episode 20,
the Gingaman tribute,
we see Hakaze holding a box of donuts. It's because Hikaru loved donuts.
He's obsessed with donuts. If you watch the show, he's constantly
eating donuts. So it's like that's a nod for that. Now here's a funny one. In the episode when Luca and Doc switch bodies, there's actually another reference to another Sentai because they've actually done that a few times in Sentai. But in this reference is that doing the shopping bags that you're lifting up and all the areas that they walk, the signs and all that, they're all names of female villains. If you look closely, they're all female names of female.
Most of them you can't read, or they're just too small. But some of them, like Nai and Mei from Maji Ranger, are clearly visible. Or Gara from Dai Rangers is right on the side.
Shizuka from Gokaiger. So it's a pretty funny nod over there. Now in Jetman, the Easter egg is the grave and all the tributes, because in Jetman, every single one of the Jetmans had a specific thing. Guy loved his wine. Ryu loved flowers. Kaori loved flowers, and she was a wish woman too. Ako was because a guy was obsessed with her. He made Ako noodles, and then Raita, he just loves food in general. He was a vegetable person. So you see all those come to one piece. So that was actually a really interesting nod right there. In the Upper Ranger tribute, episode 29, when you see Guy about to kiss Aim in the dress, that's actually a reference because in Abare Ranger, every time they go to commercial, they always will have one of the Zords talking, "What will happen? Oh my God, is this gonna be the end?" like that. But instead, this time we got Emery and Yukito doing it, saying, "We gotta find out what's after the commercial." That's actually a pretty interesting nod, and it's actually funny because it never it's really surprising to keep that. So in episode 33 of Gokaiger, which is the Dai Ranger tribute, near the ending of the series of the show, when Ryu's getting his dumplings, they call them, you see in the background there's a guy selling all masks. Those are all the masks of Rangers.
Yeah, if you look closer, you can see the Conquer Ranger helmets, the
Dekaranger helmets.
I think there's Gokangers in there.
Yeah, there were a few of them, and it's like all displayed in a nice little cave in a nice little area. Now, there were a few random rumors during the Gokaiger airing when Gokaiger first started, saying that Alpha 5 was going to be in the series. Yeah,
there was some rumor going on where someone's like, "Oh, they shipped the Alpha 5 suit inside to Gokaiger and they're going to show him in the background."
And then also the fact that
there was another time where someone was saying they're going to put Jew Rangers and Kiba Ranger in there so that he was going to be like the reference to season 2. Another rumor happened was when the actor who plays Joe took a photograph. He showed a photograph on his
blog in Japan. He actually, the actor was taking a picture with King Ranger and Kiba Ranger, which is really, and also Boken Blue, which is really odd because
we thought they were going to be in the show.
I was actually thinking, hey, we're going to see Kiba and King Ranger, like they were kids, we could see them up close, but technically they didn't really show them. All they did was they were on set. Same thing with Tenma and Kira Ranger. The funny thing is that they were actually on a set doing the episode 33 when they were filming. Apparently they were supposed to be used for like one scene, but they cut them out. So that's why instead they put them in the final episode of Gokaiger.
Another issue that came up was the exclusion of certain Rangers. For some reason, they excluded X1 Mask, they excluded Deca Bright and Deca Gold.
And also the fact that X1 Mask in Gokaiger, he was referenced as the first 6th hero, but he only can transform once.
Yeah, so he should have been counted in the overall team.
But they don't count him.
And Deca Gold and Deca Bright being ignored doesn't make any sense either.
Deca Bright technically counts as an extra hero too, because she was in 2 episodes of Dekarangers.
And Gold counts regardless because she was in the movie.
But then again, also same thing with Gosei Green, because we saw that.
Gosei Green could count. He could possibly count.
But a lot of people are like
they kind of like, well, he was dead, and he was just a reuse of the blue suit.
Now, PR tapping into Gokaiger, that is something I'm really looking forward to, because you cannot have 199 because we only got up to
Season 16.
MMPR to whatever's now.
What I particularly want to happen in the adaptation from Gokaiger to PR is that they omit the first 15 seasons, because we really don't need to see them. I know there are people who would argue we need to see them. They'll be good to sell as toys. But in reality, who's going to care about anything before MMPR? No one.
If you notice that, like, with what Saban does with toy releases.
They don't even release everything. They don't. Not anymore.
Like, I know that Toy did make a Legend War, just including only the past ranges that we've done from Zoo Ranger and up. That's something that I'm going to look forward to. But the only thing I also want them to improve is
writing.
The writing and the acting.
Yes, that has to improve, because Samurai has gone into like...
The only actor I see really good is Mike. He's the only one that can act. I mean, in season 2, I've seen that most of them improved, but Kevin still needs improvement. His voice and his tone.
And plus, the main thing with Samurai is that they're copying all the Shinkenger stuff and they're cutting so much stuff out. I hope this doesn't happen. I don't want them to adapt the Sid story and then like cut certain things out. All the personalities. I don't want them like identical to them.
Someone complained or maybe about why people hate Samurai is because it's a copy of Shinkenger, Americanized, just more crappier. And they also are extending it. Because I was hoping Samurai would end by last year, because
a standard 1 year.
A standard 1 year, but Samurai's been going on, and it's going to be going on until the end of the year. So it's like
2 years of the same show. Yes, kids will not really care, but for the older fans, and plus it doesn't show quality anymore. You could be a kid's show, but you need that quality still.
Like Saban did really well at MMPR. That's why MMPR was like one of the most godliest hits back in the 90s. But then it started to decline more and more. Like after, I believe it was Season 3, like ratings started dropping down, but then it picked up back up when there was Space, because Space was really good. And a lot of people thought Space ended because Space technically
ended the first part of the series.
Yeah, it felt like Power Rangers was no more, but Power Rangers still lived on.
Yeah, the show continues to be good at some points, but then there are times where it goes bad.
Final verdict of the show, Gokaiger, out of a possible 10, I'd say I'd give it about 8.5 due to the fact that it was really good to see actors, but there were some fillers that were just out of place.
Well, we always get the traditional fillers that were stupid.
But then it also got boring at like one episode, and it just didn't really feel like...
I personally give it a 7. I would like to give it a 10, but the problem was the villains. Even though the main heroes were pretty overall good, and we had good stories with the guests and stuff, the villains are also an important part of the series. Without them, there's really nothing to like root for the hero. But I do have to warn you that you might get spoiled by some of the episodes when you're like, if you're new to Samurai and never watched any Sentai, you kind of will get spoiled for Samurai's like special secret reveals that'll happen later on. So yeah, that's it for this really big special episode of recap of the entire Gokai series. I hope you enjoyed this entire little look back between the shows. I'm Archer 9234.
Take a look 25, yeah.
For next week's episode, I'll be doing Return of the Green Ranger Part 1.
See you guys.